Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Well, I'm back. So I took a bunch. I'm the guy that's standing between you and lunch and the awards presentation. So what I've actually done is I've removed some slides. I'm going to get on my horse and we'll see if we can kind of take a ride through this and talk a little bit about our program that we call Pumps and Pipes. This is our 10th year anniversary for Pumps and Pipes, and it has been a journey. Okay, so we want to talk about the other guy's toolkit. As I said, Pumps and Pipes program was founded 10 years ago by Dr. Lumsden, and this actually occurred during a long airplane flight. He was sitting next to an oil and gas engineer from Exxon Mobil. They kind of shared each other's computer screens, and by the time the plane landed, they realized that flowing blood and flowing oil had a lot of things in common. It's the same science. And so really, looking at the other guy's toolkit, what we've tried to do is bring in people, this is a uniquely Houston kind of a program. These are our major sponsors, DeBakey Heart and Vascular Center, Exxon Mobil, University of Houston, and now NASA, Johnson Space Center, and the other aerospace companies have also joined in. We have three things that we're trying to get at. Number one is education through a variety of different sources. Communication. How do you meet people? How do you meet people that you don't normally associate with and start a conversation? And then lastly, the most messiest part of all, getting to a collaboration. And success for us is sometimes measured in, can you get a non-disclosure agreement between two different groups? And so we want to kind of look at this and build this unique innovation opportunity between medicine, energy, and aerospace, which are Houston's largest industries. So the wonder of it all. I think Dr. Lumsden talked yesterday about one of the projects we were involved in. Exxon wanted to kind of learn more about flow of oil into a oil pipe. And so we built a model of a working oil pipe and put it in our MR imaging equipment and got these incredible flow streams, images. So Exxon was surprised by this, and they actually modified the design of the internal design of their oil well. They've helped us because we wanted to build a system that could also be used to test cardiovascular devices in the MR environment. And we wanted to do this, of course, with a Machloop. We didn't know how to really program linear actuators to do what we wanted it to do. This is hardware that they used at Exxon Mobil every day in their labs. So not only did they program the linear actuator for us, they built the entire system. And we analyzed heart valves, devices we have under development, AV graphs, we've looked at aortic dissection models, the list goes on and on. Ice on the moon. Why might this be important? If we're going to go back to the moon, it might be nice to have a water supply up there, and even also something that we could use for an oxygen supply. Well, it so happens that NASA has discovered that there are 40 craters at the North Pole of the moon that have perhaps 600 million tons of ice. Now, what NASA doesn't know how to do is drill for ice. So there's actually been a collaboration over the last few years with Exxon Mobil. Exxon Mobil has experience in drilling through ice, and with these incredible drill heads, and they're working together on this. They met at a Pumps and Pipes meeting. Biofilm eradication. This is something we see with implantable catheters and cannulas all the time. NASA developed a system for treating the water supply on the space station. Kind of a unique device, and we went to them and said, can this thing be miniaturized? Could it potentially be on the tip of a 7 French catheter? And so, kind of on their own time, they've been doing this, and the system has gotten progressively smaller and smaller. We hope to at least start some in vitro work with this soon. This is a project that's actually gone on for a while now, basically being headed by the groups at Johnson Space Center. Oh, by the way, biofilm is the leading cause of oil spills on the inside of pipelines. The oil and gas guys call this microbial induced corrosion. So the question is, could you take that same technology I just talked about that we miniaturized, could you now scale it up to treat pipelines and perhaps prevent this biofilm erosion, corrosion of the oil pipe? Fracking balls. Baker Hughes is an interesting company in Houston. They're kind of the science geeks of the oil and gas industry, and they've developed this interesting material, which is an erodible metal. And we've talked to them about the possibilities of modifying the surface of this material. It's based on it's nanomaterial based, so the breakdown is really, it doesn't fall apart, it just erodes nicely. So there may be applications in medicine, stents and other things, where a very strong erodible metal may have applications. They provided us with some material. We hope to do some basic biomaterial testing in tissue culture soon. Shape memory polymer. They developed this to go around a completed oil well. This prevents sand from getting into the pipe. It's commonly done now with gravel. They'll pump gravel down a mile underground to do this. This is actually an expanding memory polymer. Dr. Lumsden was interested in looking at this as possibility for filling vascular spaces, aneurysms. And it so happens there's a group at Texas A&M that's also working on a shape memory polymer as well. One of the most interesting pumps and pipes conferences we had was out at the Neutral Buoyancy Lab at Johnson Space Center. This is the giant pool where they train astronauts on how to do spacewalks. Now, the reason I show this, I mean, we kind of built out this bay that day when we gave the symposium there, but we had tables, much like you have tables here. And what struck us is, up until then, we'd basically been an auditorium setting. The tables were great for networking. And that was one of the things we learned most, and you can see all the NASA displays here around the outside. This was a great conference for networking, and we learned something from that. I'll come back to that in a few minutes. Well, Billy, glad to see him here today. He's been a part of the Pumps and Pipes program almost since the very beginning. He's given a number of talks, and in fact, with Dr. Valderbano, he gave one of our live cases that we did, and so we called it Cowboy Boots and Lariat. The Lariat is his device, and I noticed today he had his cowboy boots on as well. Luca Parmitano. I think Dr. Lumsden told you yesterday about Luca. Luca is the Italian astronaut that almost drowned in space during a spacewalk because he had a water leak in his spacesuit. Now, many times I'll get these phone calls from people. And I got a call from NASA, and they said, well, we know you have this amazing imaging capability. We'd like to do some non-destructive analysis of EVA spacesuits. We'd like to look inside our spacesuits without having to tear them apart, because they're very expensive. This was after Luca's event, and I said, okay, I'll make a deal with you. We'll image your spacesuit if you can get Luca to give a talk. And he did. And after he gave his talk, we went up to our facility in Mighty and imaged that spacesuit.
So what you've just seen is the rotation of this image acquisition system. It is built on the end of a robotic arm. That arm actually came off car assembly lines and has been modified for use in the medical world. And you can see essentially what it was doing is giving us rotational acquisition of these pictures. And on the bottom right-hand panel, you're going to see how we work in this 3D space. And as we walk through this, we're going to talk about what you can actually see inside the suit. So this, what we're focusing on, is the junction between the helmet and the body component of the suit itself. And that
where the back
shield,
of the head is.
you can point out what that diffuser is. That diffuser is that space. This is the back of the helmet that we're looking at. And that fluid came up from the body component between the diffuser and the outside of the helmet, and it came over the front basically of Luca's face. That's where the fluid actually came from.
Right there. So, Pumps and Pipes 9. This is a couple of years ago. And a couple of things I want to point out. One of the things we looked at was mitral valve repair. We also used that telepresence robot that Dr. Lumsden showed you this morning, and we parked it in an observatory in England. And we went live. The reason is we wanted to meet this young man right here. He's a high school student. I'll get back to students in just a minute, but we wanted to hear his story because as he was a student in this observatory, he discovered a new exoplanet, many, many light years away. And exoplanets are Earth-like planets, and so we wanted to hear his story. We couldn't really easily bring him to Houston, but we could join him live with the telepresence robot. This is the professor. Back here you can see the telescope. Also at that event, we focused in on the risk of radiation, both in the hybrid operating room and in outer space. Well, here's the Martian on Mars, wearing, it looks like, long johns. This is not going to protect anybody from deep space ionizing radiation. You'd be dead in a short period of time. And so, in fact, NASA really doesn't know how to solve this problem yet. If they're going to go back to the moon, especially if they're going to go back to Mars, they really have no good way of shielding the habitats or especially people working outside. And in fact, the only people that have worked in a deep space environment are the Apollo lunar landing astronauts. And in fact, there was an article published last year where they've been shown to have an increased risk of cardiovascular disease due, they think, to endothelium injury caused by radiation exposure. At that same meeting, Ted Detrick joined us. Dr. Detrick trained at Baylor, worked with Dr. DeBakey, and went to Arizona, founded the Arizona Heart Institute, became a pioneer in the use of endovascular transcatheter techniques in these hybrid suites. Dr. Detrick had cataracts, had disease in his carotid arteries. He also had a brain tumor. And he felt that all of these was due to radiation exposure over years. He also gave an interesting talk, Heart, Lungs, and Rocket Scientist, because when he was at Baylor, he worked with Grumman Aerospace to develop a heart and lung preservation chamber. Now, we worked with NASA. We were interested in finding out what does this radiation cloud look like in a hybrid suite. And so we used real-time dosimeters to map that cloud. And you can see as you go through these different views, from AP to RAO 45 and then to the lateral, the radiation cloud gets more severe, and especially due to the latter here. So this is exactly where the anesthesiologist is usually positioned. And if you've got somebody's doing transesophageal echo, that's probably also right there. So there, depending on where that X-ray machine is aimed, you're getting quite a bit of radiation. Curiosity. We like to think the Pumps and Pipes program is a meeting of curious people that are interested in finding out new things and learning new things. And so last year, we held our, for the first time, we held our event at the new Exxon Mobil Energy Center. And it was beautiful. And in fact, Roger, our AV guy that's here today, did this magnificent job for us last year. But notice, we were back at tables. Now, ExxonMobil is a high security area. You weren't just going to be able to drive in and walk up. And so we realized that we had an opportunity here. So we sent out questionnaires. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me, before we get into that, I'm going to show another very, very short video, I think. And I kind of put this in because this features somebody who worked closely with Billy and with Dr. Fraser for a couple of years and wrote a textbook with Dr. Fraser. But NASA wants to get a phone call. They're redesigning the cooling garments for the astronauts. Well, we're using cooling garments to treat patients with stroke now. Firefighters might benefit from cooling garments. And maybe heart surgeons. Anybody that works in the heat.
The suit's designed to handle the cold environment. Around the space station, the astronauts can't get very warm when you're being hit by the sun and the sun's reflecting off the equipment around you. And then if you're working hard, your metabolic heat really warms you up.
The typical heart surgery requires a certain expenditure of energy that you might equate in your mind to, I don't know, running a few miles, especially if you're in there for a couple hours. But it's aggravated because we're not dressed just like this. But basically, we're completely covered from head to toe in totally impervious material.
So the current spacesuit has a liquid cooling garment that the crew members wear inside. And that garment, it's kind of like long johns that have water tubes running through the garment.
The garment that I currently use, it's tethered and it's in a permanent power source. The only real problem with it is that it's a simple ice bath.
And once the ice melts, then the ice has to be changed out. If they don't recognize the fact that the ice is melted, they become overheated.
And so if I exert a certain number of BTUs, I totally melt the ice. I'm not getting cool anymore.
This cooling garment with the flat tubes will have better contact with the skin and improve the thermal heat exchange.
Just like we used to say, never let them see you sweat. There's a reason for that. Because when you're sweating, generally speaking, you're a little bit out of sorts and a little bit uncomfortable. If you can maintain your cool, both literally and figuratively, then it does help to clear your mind and not worry about your own bodily needs and focus like a laser on what the patient needs.
So they've been talking to one another. And NASA developed their cooling garment. It covers the arms, the legs, it just covers everything. And they cover parts of the body where you have very inefficient heat transfer. And what they're focusing in on now is putting everything right here, in the small of the back. And so it makes the whole system smaller, makes it more efficient. NASA can work on other systems, maybe get rid of the ice bath. And so this is kind of one of those things, people coming together, pumps and pipes, and talking about these things. We'll see where it goes. Students. We've had a pretty exciting STEM program for the last 5 or 6 years, and we really take this seriously. And the companies have been very helpful. Stores comes in every year. We dress the students up just like they're going to the operating room. Stores brings in all their latest equipment and their box trainers, and we put the students through the same training that we put our vascular surgeons through. They actually see some things that the adults didn't get to see last year, but this has been a program that we've really wanted to expand and see if we can branch this out, if it can be scaled. It's always interesting to attend the meeting where you might have a heart surgeon talking to an astronaut, talking to an oil and gas engineer, and there's a high school student standing there right in the middle of them. So we've kind of embraced this. We're trying to still figure out how we can make it better. So here's the results over the last 10 years. Things really kind of exploded since we started doing the live webcast. And I'm pleased to see that you're webcasting now, because you're going to see, you're going to have an audience that's going to start increasing because of this, I believe. Our live venue populations have stayed relatively the same. There's only so many people you can put in an auditorium or a conference hall. But with webcasting, you can really see tremendous growth. And last year, we had over 5,000 people, either virtually or on site, watching our Pumps and Pipes meeting. That's a big audience. Here's what it looks like worldwide. We were in all 50 states, at least for that, over 3,600 views. With 88 countries, a little over 1,000 views. So Pumps and Pipes has become an international organization. And in fact, we now have an affiliate in Norway, Norway Pumps and Pipes. When oil went to $35 a barrel, the Norwegians felt we have to diversify, and they actually approached us about this. This is funded by the Norwegian government, and over the last year, in about a year and a half, they have 5 startup companies, all in the medical sector. And this came out of the oil and gas industry. Okay, back to tables. We were at Exxon and we thought, well, we can do something different. So we sent a questionnaire to everybody that was attending the meeting. It was a detailed questionnaire. We actually went to Match.com and pulled their patent to see how they do it. And what we did is we matched people at tables, 6 people per table. And we didn't tell people who they were going to be sitting with. But because of the questionnaire, we kind of thought this might be people you might want to start a conversation with and meet. So let's look at some word clouds. One of the questions was, if I had blank, I could blank. Well, we thought people might say money. Well, time was the big driver here for this one, along with a whole lot of other things around it. Pushing the envelope. What are people interested in? This is the first time we actually were able to take a look at who attends a Pumps and Pipes meeting and what are they interested in. And a lot of things kind of flowed out of that. This is the one that really surprised me. The curiosities. People are into big data, robotics, all the stuff we've been talking about this morning with autonomous catheter navigation, for instance, robotics, artificial intelligence. All of this stuff kind of flows out of there. So we're trying to see if there's more ways that we can work with this, advance it, and at the end of the day, a lot of this is about footprints. And we're kind of born with them. You get a friend, you walk in the snow, take a few more friends and go to the beach. If you're really lucky, you might leave some footprints on the moon. So I want to thank you for letting me talk a little bit about the Pumps and Pipes program. It's about looking at things differently. And I know that my experience with perfusionists, you're a curious group of people. You want to learn. That's why you're here today. And so meet a new friend. Look at different ways of looking at things. So thank you very much.
Stay up here with me. Yeah, but stay up.